I'm Jeremy Singer, president of the College Board, and this is the Education Equation. I've spent my career grappling with what truly drives student success. On this podcast, I'll talk with people who are researching, building, and scaling solutions that matter. Every episode will go beyond the hype and focus on data and evidence to see what's actually working. Let's stop guessing and let's figure out what works.
My guest today is Sal Khan. Sal is the founder and CEO of Khan Academy, a nonprofit with a mission of providing free, world-class education for anyone, anywhere. He's the author of Brave New Words, a book about the future of AI in education, and co-author of Teaching Students to Use AI Ethically and Responsibly, a resource for educators, parents, and school leaders. Sal began this journey by tutoring his cousins remotely as a hobby. Over the past 2 decades, his effort has grown into a global learning platform used by more than 190 million registered users across 190 countries. Khan Academy offers free interactive exercises, instructional videos, and teacher tools across subjects like math, science, the humanities, writing, and SAT prep. The nonprofit is pioneering AI in education with Khanmigo, an AI tool designed to serve as both a tutor and a teaching assistant. Sal has been recognized as one of Time's 100 most influential people and recently was named one of the best leaders of 2025 by U.S. News. Sal, first, congratulations, and second, welcome to the Education Equation.
Oh, no. Wonderful to be here.
There is a ton we could cover, but I don't think anyone wants to listen to a 4-hour podcast, even if we do it at 2 times speed. So I'm going to fast forward past your origin story, which is wonderful. I think it's even better than Peter Parker's. And I'm going to start when we met a dozen years ago. I had recently left Kaplan Test Prep to join the College Board and was committed to providing the best test practice for free. And I set 2 excellent colleagues and friends, Aditi Chakravarti and Stacey Caldwell, out to evaluate possible partners. And they came back with a recommendation of Khan Academy. And based on evidence, they felt your organization and you provided the best opportunity for all students. And I and the rest of our colleagues at College Board are so grateful for the partnership. So I don't think I've ever asked you this, but from your perspective, how'd that process feel when we approached you and when we started this partnership?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it does go a little bit back to the original origin story. I started tutoring cousins, and then that first cousin that I was tutoring, I started tutoring her when she was 12, Nadia. But when she was a little bit older, by the time she was 16 or 17, she's starting to get ready for college. She's going to take the SAT. And I remember, what can I do to help Nadia? And what I literally did, without anyone's permission, you probably don't advocate for this, I went and found one of those 10 SAT books, and I recorded me working through every problem in the book. And I tend to be compulsive that way. And I said, Nadia, they're all there for you now. And when I was doing it, I was like, I don't know if the College Board, I didn't know y'all then, but I was like, I don't know if they're going to like this, but I'm maybe providing some value. And then once Khan Academy became a real thing, 5, 6, 7 years later, I said, well, wouldn't it be great if we were to partner with the College Board? And this was before you and David were at the College Board. There were some soft conversations, but I think at the time they were like, who is this guy? And, this kind of startup-y nonprofit type of thing.
Right.
And so when y'all came to us, I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, there was always these conversations about when I started, Common Core was coming on, and I was like, isn't there already a Common Core? Isn't it called like AP and SAT? Like, isn't that what people care about? So yes, I definitely was excited, and I give a lot of credit to the College Board. I'm glad y'all did that diligence and came to the conclusion that we were the best organization. But we were a small organization, as you know, and it legitimized us even more. Hopefully we were already getting
you were well on your way, and we are glad to have helped do our part. I should note we celebrated our 10-year anniversary of our partnership. Tens of millions of students have taken advantage of the free personalized test practice resources, and we're going strong. I just heard there's over 350,000 students in both reading and math that use it every month. So I'm going to, again, go back to 2015, and we were readying for the announcement and launch of the redesigned SAT, and you generated so many great instructional videos aligned to the redesigned exam. And as we approached the announcement, we sort of belatedly realized that there were going to be a large number of students who were going to still take the old or the existing exam before the redesign was available. And these students, we realized, would be quite frustrated not to have all these great new resources we were going to announce. So I remember going to you and saying, hey, would you mind, after all this great work, create videos for the old exam? And at College Board, we said you went into beast mode and you just started cranking out these videos for the old exam, like day and night, 24/7. And you really took mythical status at College Board. And I remember talking to you about it. I think we were in Austin. And I asked how you did. And you said, well, I wake up at 5 a.m. And I think you told me you go into a closet and just start recording. And jokingly, thinking of the Rocky movie and the training montage, I said, oh, do you drink raw eggs? And you were like, yes. So I'd love to hear more, and our listener would love to hear more about the process you use for creating all the instructional content. And importantly, like, how has that evolved over the last dozen years? Let's pause it before we get to AI, because we're going to do plenty on AI in a minute.
Yeah, look, my methodology for making videos has always been pretty much the same, which is I like to, if it's something that has a lot of like content and I got to make sure I spell things right or say things right, I'll do some research or something I forgot. But if it's something like math or SAT questions, I have a little bit of pride. I'm like, I should be able to do all of this. And so I actually like to be, quote, surprised. Like when I'm recording it, 90% of the time, that's the first time that I'm seeing that question.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We hear one, it's easy, it's better for me. And it's usually 0 edits. And what we've heard from students over the time is they really appreciate that. You can tell whether someone is reading a script or whether they're really thinking while they're doing it. And we don't edit out if, let's say, for 5 seconds, I go down the wrong path for a second and then I back up. And we've heard feedback from students like, wow, finally, someone's showing how you really think about these problems, as opposed to just having the perfect solution, like as if it always just comes into your mind. So that's what I did then. I still do now. I still make videos. I'm not the only person making videos. I still make pretty much all of the math videos, whether SAT or other types of math. I do a lot of the science videos. We have another gentleman who's hilarious, who does a lot of the reading comprehension and grammar. He's a personality unto himself, and he probably has a slightly different process. But for me, it's very off the cuff, and only if it's a disastrous something happens, will I re-record.
No, and it shows, Sal, like it makes it very authentic because you really are grappling with the issue with the learner, and I think we'll get back to it later, but I think that's one of the many elements of why you've been so successful and effective. So last quick anecdote, your reputation at College Board grew very quickly. And as you know, we're headquartered in New York City, so we have a fair number of Jewish staff. And here we are working so closely with this Bangladeshi American. And I cannot tell you how many people I had to correct and say, no, it's not SAUL. KAHN. It's SALKHAN. So we've come a long way since 2015, I guess is the message. So can you share a moment when the usage or performance data really reaffirmed in your eyes the approach we took, a proof point that told you this partnership's having the type of impact we all wanted?
Well, I think in the data from pretty much as soon as we launched, it definitely surpassed our expectations. I think it surpassed all of our expectations in terms of the percentage, huge percentage of students who were taking the SAT were using it. The thing that always means a lot is, the data, but then when you start hearing the anecdotes too, where, people felt genuinely thankful, that they felt appreciative. Even today, when we, the number of times we're talking to a school district for the first time and I'm talking to the superintendent or the chief academic officer, and they'll literally start the conversation with, oh, before we get into it, my niece says thank you for the SAT help. That's like probably the most common thing I hear. And, and sometimes the niece is now 35 years old. It's been a while, maybe not 35, 25 years old.
Yeah, come on, we're still young, Sal. So are there things, thinking back again to 2015 to the extent you can, are there insights that you didn't anticipate or things that, you talked about how it sort of gained traction quicker, which we felt the same way, but other things you've learned over the last 10 years from this?
Yeah, one thing, and I remember there was these debates, and we even had these debates because obviously the whole point of doing this is to improve access and improve equity. And I think there's a couple of things. One is the positioning, and I think this is why y'all came to Khan Academy, is that we didn't view this as test prep. We view this as college prep, as evidenced by the test that shows how ready you are for college. And I think y'all appreciated that, on the SAT prep or on the examples, I usually would say, you should know how to solve this. And I would show you how to actually do it. I might have given a few tips on like, well, you could have eliminated this or this, just by inspection, et cetera. So that's one. I think another one, it really did fine tune even my notion of what Khan Academy as a whole is trying to do, because there's always this fear that, okay, if you put something online that requires an internet connection, maybe only the people who have an internet connection, now, especially in the US, almost everyone has one,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was definitely a fear 10 years ago. And I remember us talking about, oh, well, if a resource is somehow, if the demographics are disproportionately kids who went to higher education, et cetera, does that mean we're somehow driving inequity? And I think it really put a fine point on this idea of, well, no, imagine what happens if you take these resources away. Because as we know, there's a ton of students, low-income students, students from underrepresented groups, who are using these resources. And if you take these resources away, the kids from upper middle class, well-educated families, they'll just go to other resources. Not a big deal. They'll spend a little bit of money for it. But the other kids, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of kids, if not millions, will have nothing. And so that journey that we went on together, we've always tried to make sure we're reaching as many kids that need it as possible. But it's really put a fine point on how important this work is.
Yeah, and we'll come back to it later. But one of the many things when we get to your book, one of your books that I loved is, you mentioned perfect not being the enemy of good, and comparing things not versus absolute or purist, but versus the alternative of the reality we live in now. And so I think there you're right. Like, is it perfect? No, I think we all acknowledge it. But is it better set of resources than otherwise? And I worry sometimes in this space, the purists can kill really good work. So thank you for pushing against that. So moving away from our partnership and just more broadly, how wonderful the Khan Academy has grown and its usage over, as I opened up, with 190 million registered users, et cetera. I watched, at least my perception was there's a little bit of a repositioning or rethinking. Initially, very early, it was almost supplemental to what happens in the school. And I've observed you seeing and thinking about how do you better integrate it into the way students are learning with teachers, et cetera. So we have a fair number of teachers, instructional leaders who listen to this podcast. So share that evolution and how you got there and where you're at.
Yeah, no, there has definitely been an evolution. In the early days, we definitely viewed this as something that hopefully teachers would find useful. I remember I made the first teacher tools, teacher dashboards back in 2007 when it was just me operating out of a closet. I'm actually still in that same closet where I am right now. It's a nice closet, no complaints. But
you should build yourself a bigger closet now.
No, I like it. I can touch the walls. So we always had a lens that, look, we want to be a safety net for the student out there who might not have access to school or doesn't have access to tutoring. Maybe they're struggling in their class and they need some supplemental learning. But ideally, we could also be used in a classroom. There's one teacher, 30 students. That teacher knows that these kids are all at different levels, have different gaps. If they could use a tool like ours, maybe they could personalize the pacing more, give students the opportunity to fill in their gaps, move ahead, slow down, whatever they need. And you fast forward to about, 7 years ago, we had many thousands, if not tens of thousands of teachers using it in their classrooms in this way. And we had a whole series of efficacy studies, we still do, 50 plus, that if students were to engage in personalized practice, even 60 minutes a week over the course of a school year, they're accelerating 30, 40, 50%. And some of these are quite causal, RCTs, and we recently did one that I think is even a little bit better than an RCT if possible. So we started going to school districts and we say, hey, a bunch of your teachers are already using Khan Academy. Why don't you just use it district-wide? And the school districts, after they told us how, thank you for their niece on the SAT prep, they would say, well, we believe Khan Academy would work, but for us to use it district-wide, we need support, training, integration with our rostering systems, district-level dashboards. You need to sign our data privacy agreement. You got to, meet our accessibility guidelines. And that is a lot of work, and you have to align to all of the different state standards or even flavors of the state standards.
Yep.
But we were like, if our mission, free world-class education for anyone, anywhere, if we're serious about it, if we really want to move the dial for all people, districts are the way that you need to reach that. And if you want to engage students, we can make all the nice bells and whistles on the product, but really the way that you're going to engage students is through teachers. And if you can help teachers help students, then everyone wins. And so, we've been going on that journey for about 7 years now, and there's approaching 2 million formal school partners. There's many more millions using us informally, but these are the places where it's a deeper partnership.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I can hear from when I talk to teachers, the sentiment has grown so much more positive over the years about your work in Khan Academy. So I feel that from the start of our partnership, we were both realistic and knew that for so many students, regardless of how good your tools were and everything else, that there still was a role for some sort of human support, whether it was a live person to explain a concept, someone that the student would feel accountable to do the work when they weren't in front of them, a cheerleader, a friendly ear, you name it. And the reality of the majority of learners would not succeed with solely a set of asynchronous instructional tools. And so we tried at College Board a lot of different partnerships to bring the human into the mix. We did a partnership with Boys and Girls Club, but nothing worked, at least at scale. And then you come along and you start Schoolhouse World. And it wasn't like, I don't think you were bored. You're pretty busy, and I don't think you were having a midlife crisis. So what led you to start that nonprofit?
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you think I wasn't having a midlife crisis, but the pandemic hit, and I had always had a vision or an idea that even in traditional classrooms that were using Khan Academy, the best implementations weren't just kids on their screens in their own lane. It would be that there's some mechanism where students who might be a little ahead could be a little bit of a TA and tutor some of their other kids. So there'd be like this hum of kids working with each other, not cheating, but supporting each other and tutoring. And even in the earliest days when I was working with my cousins, that first version of Khan Academy, I had a little shared Blackboard. And in a lot of cases, I would set that up with my cousins. I was like, okay, we covered this last year. Can you tutor your other cousin to do that? So I've always been a big believer on peer-to-peer. When I was in high school, I was a peer tutor. And my high school took it so seriously that this tutoring program that the math club ran, and no surprise, I was the president of the math club. They made it a part of the
chess
school.
club, for the record.
That's nerdy. At my school, any student who was getting a C or lower in their math class had to go to the tutoring that was run by 16-year-old Sal. And we were effective. We took some kids who were failing their math classes and they joined the math team. And they became, so that was actually my first exposure to if you just gave someone some attention, and sometimes the near peers could actually give better attention. They knew where those students were. They could speak their language. And so the pandemic hits and, Khan Academy usage goes through the roof. But we also knew that people were isolated, they were on their own. And that's when the idea said, look, now or never, what if we were to, reach out to Zoom, get a bunch of free Zoom licenses, which they did to their credit, and create a system where students could say what they need help in, and other students, when we'd have to verify somehow that they know the material, can go and be the tutors. And it worked. and so we started scaling. And then obviously we've always been partners with y'all, and we started thinking about, maybe this could be really powerful for the SAT. And there was already a little bit of informal SAT tutoring going on. And so, over the last, what's it been, a year and a half, almost 2 years?
Yeah, it's a little longer. So I'll jump in and we can break some news here, Sal, for our listeners. So College Board and Schoolhouse World are launching a new effort, and we're going to offer free peer-to-peer tutoring for SAT preparation. And it's adding a new dimension to already this wonderful world-class free set of practice resources that we have together. So just some data since 2022, it was longer than we thought. When I saw the data, I was also surprised. We have piloted 4-week peer-tutored SAT boot camps. There have been more than 30,000 sessions, 181,000 registered learners, nearly 20,000 peer tutors, and over 98% of the sessions have been rated helpful by learners. So all this, as you were saying, gave us confidence and you confidence in the model. Can you share any data or feedback from that experience that gave you confidence that the model could work?
Yeah, I think one of the really powerful parts of the pilot that we've had, and now we're going to be, going bigger with this, is one of the main questions is when someone is a tutor, how do you validate that they're qualified? And being able to partner with y'all and essentially being able to recruit from the students who are already operating, near the 99th percentile on the SAT was a great way to validate. And then also a lot of colleges started saying, hey, yeah, if someone is an SAT tutor and a SAT scholar, that's something that we would be interested in and seeing. It shows not only, obviously, they could already see their SAT score, but this person can communicate, they can lead. There's all sorts of these higher order skills that it starts to evidence. So that was great that, there's consumers for this. Most of the students are doing it just because they really enjoy it, but it's good for them to know some of this stress around college admissions that can be channeled into something that can help your peer as opposed to try to feel like you're competing with their peer. So that's been nice. And, to your point about 98% of folks saying it's been helpful, when we first launched our first version of, let's call it the digital SAT prep, and I would still meet students who were paying for test prep. And I said, why are you paying for test prep? We have all the studies. This stuff that we're doing with the College Board is as good as it gets. They're like, no, we know we're using that. And actually, in many cases, kind of shady. The paid test prep was also using the tools that we created. But they said, well, I just want someone to hold me accountable, and it just makes me feel better. And I like being part of a cohort. And so now that we've been able to do these boot camps, honestly, I think the reviews we're getting from the boot camps are better than when someone, even if they were to get I won't name names, but if they were to pay $5,000 and get that paid test prep, they're liking these boot camps even more. And both sides are benefiting. My son is an SAT tutor, and he's tutoring in his boot camp. He had two young women, one from Mexico City, one from Connecticut. And, it's just, there's this cultural exposure that you get too. So, we started Schoolhouse as a way to help people help each other academically. But I think these connections, human connections that have started to form has been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I think it's great. And one, obviously together we've done some research, and, one of the things I think would make our mutual friend Angie Duckworth excited was students who complete the SAT boot camps show significant gains in confidence and specifically in growth mindset. We've also seen score gains compared to other interventions. So yeah, we think there's a lot here, and we're super excited, and particularly that it's free. I'll also add one more piece, which is, I think clearly you've thought, Schoolhouse.World has thought so smartly about how do you motivate to get people to volunteer to be tutors and create credentials and something that's meaningful. And you talk about in your book for college admission. So the whole system works in my mind. So congrats. Threaded throughout all these discussions, we both speak about the importance of the pedagogy of the materials or instruction, but we also need to make sure that it's engaging, because if no matter how good the pedagogy is, if students don't spend time on tasks, they're never going to succeed. And, frequent critique of something like Duolingo is they're great at engagement, and they get these kids to do these streaks for 300 days, but maybe not so much on the pedagogy. So, you've been working on both sides of that, and can you share the idea of knowing medicine can't always be made to taste good, how you've succeeded here?
It's an ongoing journey, and Duolingo does a lot of great things, and from them and the gaming world, there's definitely a lot of things that we have historically put into Khan Academy, and we're going to put more into Khan Academy with badges and streaks and fun classroom level competitions and things like that. But at the end of the day, the most important game mechanic, and I'm not saying that as a pejorative in the education system, is the teacher. One, there's just a very extrinsic motivator of like, people want to pass the class. And if the teacher says you need to do this to pass the class, they're more likely to do it. But also, as you mentioned, the teacher is there to, hey, why are you stuck? How can I help you? That was a great thing you just did. Or, hey, why are you, last week you were pretty engaged. What's going on this week? And so that's where, that's why we're working with districts. That's why we're doing teacher training. That's why we're working closely with them. And so I think, to your point, it's both. Like we definitely should be investing in ways to make it more engaging. I 100% agree with you. If someone is engaged, you can give them a 19th century textbook and they will learn a lot. And if they're not engaged, you can give them the fanciest VR, AI, whatever. They're not going to learn a thing. And so we have seen that too. And so for us is, yes, let's make the platform by itself as engaging as possible, but we can't water down the content because content has to be efficacious. And but there's human systems we can leverage, and that could be the teacher in the classroom, that could be the superintendent celebrating. We're talking to some countries now, and we're like, look, we're not here to quote sell anything. If you are going to invest in your schools in your country using Khan Academy, it's only going to succeed if you're, one of the countries we're talking to has a king. If your king, like every month, like celebrates the schools and the teachers that are using Khan Academy, then the culture in the country is going to change. So I think it's the human systems plus the game mechanics.
I was sure you were going to say my cousin who's the king.
We're not that blue-blooded.
I can't believe we've been talking this long and haven't talked about AI, but now I want to shift to AI. You really have been focusing on this and been a leader in this. You've published 2 books. I listened to Brave New Words, which is excellent. I was even more impressed that you actually voiced it. And anyone who can reference Noam Chomsky, Ethan Mollick, Francis Ford Coppola, and Donald Trump in the same chapter has done something really significant. I should also note this small thing that you launched, Khanmigo, which has really done pioneering work in the AI space, particularly around tutoring. With all this, by the way, you make me and others feel quite small, not accomplish much. But to start, share the moment when you first sort of grasped what a game changer AI could be to tutoring or more broadly to teaching and learning?
Yeah, we were lucky. And look, there's a whole series of things. I'm a very rational person, I think, but I have sometimes this, let's call it a tongue-in-cheek theory that benevolent aliens are helping Khan Academy prepare humanity for first contact. One example is y'all reaching out to us when we were still a fairly small organization saying, you want to be the official practice for the SAT? I was like, yes, please. Then fast forward to about 3 years ago, we had another one of those benevolent alien moments where I got an email from Sam Altman and Greg Brockman from OpenAI, and this was 6 months before ChatGPT came out. No one was really caring much about this. Even I was like, yeah, I know these guys. They're the real deal. And they said they're about to train their next model, which would end up being GPT-4. And they thought this was going to be the model. They said we wanted to launch it with some socially positive use cases with organizations that could leverage it. We thought of Khan Academy. Would you like to see it? And I didn't think it was going to, I'm sure you do too. Every day we get 5 or 10 people who want to partner with us, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, well, it's not going to end up, but I'm curious what it's going to be able to do. So we had a virtual meeting and they showed me, and we've all experienced ChatGPT and Gemini and everything else for the last several years, but you could imagine when it was able to answer, related to y'all, an AP Bio question. And I realized in hindsight, I don't know if y'all have heard the story, the reason why they were showing me an AP Bio question, they asked me to answer it in the AI.
Yeah.
Apparently when they did GPT-3, Bill Gates said, this is cute, but I'll only be impressed when it can pass an AP Bio exam.
Yeah, we know that origin. Yeah, for sure.
so I was and then I said, I'll have it explain why the other ones aren't the answer. It did. And I was like, okay, this is strange. Yes, I would like access. So I signed all these non-disclosure agreements, et cetera. And just to appreciate how early this was, that day they gave us access, and I think we were the first, myself, Christian, our chief learning officer, we were the first people outside of OpenAI. I don't think even most of OpenAI had access. I asked them, I was like, does this work only in English? And they said, yeah, it works only in English. And then I was just curious. I was born in New Orleans. My family were Bengali. I can barely speak Bengali. And so I tried to speak to the AI in Bengali, and it responded back to me in Bengali. And so I took a screenshot and I sent it to Greg, and he's like, oh yeah, after you asked, we tested it. It looks like it speaks every language. And even for them, it was emergent behavior.
That's amazing.
But as soon as, I think the biggest thing, and this was I think is very surprising for everyone. We're used to it now, but science fiction always imagined robots talking like this and being very non-emotive and not understanding subtlety, but being very good at math and having a good
People don't have video so they can't see your arms moving.
Oh yes, exactly.
The robot arms, yeah.
But here was the thing. I remember the Donald Trump reference, one of the first things I did is I asked it to rewrite the Declaration of Independence in the tone of Donald Trump. And, regardless how you feel about Donald Trump, it was hilarious. It said, it's going to be the best country ever. George III's the biggest loser. I'm like, yeah, he kind of was a loser. I can, but, and then I had it write it in the tone of Dr. Seuss. And then I just took I didn't think it was even going to work. I said, you are an empathetic tutor. You are the Robin Williams character from Dead Poets Society. Tutor me. And it did. Look, it had issues. It was making math errors, embarrassing errors. It was making up facts. But tone-wise, it was incredible. And that's when I said, okay, this has been the dream of ed tech for a very, very long time, to be able to get that much closer to emulating a tutor and a teaching assistant in many cases. But you could imagine when I brought this to the team and we got more people into the fold, we had all the debates that folks are still having. This could be a cheating tool. It's math. It's gotten a lot better since then, but it hallucinates. What if kids have shady conversations? And I said, well, look, let's just turn those fears into features. This is too big of a deal. And look, the models are going to improve fast. And, we've got to, if we can help people with this, we've got to try.
Yeah, no. And I agree. Again, it goes back to perfection being the enemy of good and trying to make progress. And we're going to get into a lot of the details on those things. So let me start with, when your book, you talk about, and I'm complete agreement, that there's these things that they're not new. Like 20, 30 years, we've been talking about personalizing the learning experience based on the individual student. It makes perfect sense. We've talked about mastery learning, relatedly, where a student goes at their own pace and based on what they know, they see the next set of learning opportunity. And even for the classroom, it's 20 plus years ago, we were talking about the opportunity for flipped classroom, and some are actually doing it. But despite these all being clearly good ideas, and a lot of smart people have tried to tackle it, but very few have scaled and worked. And so you make a strong argument that AI can enable all of this. So What have you seen where this is manifested or where you see this potential around these kind of things?
Yeah, and even on some of the things you just mentioned, sometimes I feel exactly as you said. Oh, these are good ideas, but they actually think they have started to have an effect. When 10, 15 years ago compared to now, whether it's a pure flip of a classroom, you definitely see a lot more classrooms that are indexed on active learning versus students passively sitting and taking a lecture in, which was the norm for most of human history. So you do see a movement there. I think especially after the pandemic, you started seeing people talk about unfinished learning and ways to address that, which is shorthand for mastery learning. Like, yes, the reason why so many people are struggling is they have so many gaps. Don't even get me started on some of what we've been seeing in California. And look, I'm not ashamed to say it. When the UC system said no standardized tests, and University of California, San Diego says they have 30 times as many people now who can't engage in essentially middle school math. That's one. They don't have the data. And look, everyone in California is like, well, yeah, it's obvious because they got rid of standardized tests, which are measuring how ready you are. And, the irony is they're rejecting a ton of kids with, 1500s on their SAT because they don't know they got a 1500 on their SAT. And they're accepting a lot of kids who aren't ready for algebra yet. And you're not doing those kids a favor because they're showing up on campus. They're out of their element. They're probably going to drop out. You're not doing them a favor at all. But this is all a byproduct of unfinished learning. Right now or historically, these kids were sitting in classrooms getting promoted year to year. They're taking Algebra 1, Algebra 2, sometimes pre-calculus, sometimes even calculus, and they're getting A's in these classes. And then it turns out they're not even ready to learn algebra yet. So there is that history there. I think there's a lot more that we need to be able to do. But my hope is that we can get that much closer now with the tools that are emerging. If we were talking about 2 years ago, right when all the AI stuff was like super hot, I was also guilty of probably over-indexing on the AI. Probably because I assumed that the AI progression from GPT-3 to 4 to 5 was going to be exponential, but it's kind of looks like it's asymptoting a little bit. But I still think it all does go back to engagement. And if the AIs can help teachers help the students, if it can help save them time with, things from lesson planning, eventually even grading papers to some degree, highlighting what students need their support. Most of EdTech, including us, would just give teachers all these dashboards and expect them to be data scientists.
Right.
If we can just give narrative insights and just very actionable things to do, save teachers time because they're overworked and spread thin. And then, yes, in the right moments when if a student is stuck on something, historically they've had videos and solutions and articles. If the AI can be another layer of support or motivation, that's great. But I do think it's not just AI in isolation. And I don't think AI by itself is a silver bullet, at least not yet.
I want to jump into all this, and there's so much here. And I actually may be more of a bull on AI than you. You make a clear case in your book that when AI is designed well, it can help students learn, but not answer the question for them. And as you know, College Board's working on these same things. And this is a hard needle to thread. How do you build the guardrails? And when it falls short and AI actually has replaced the actual student learning, like what are you seeing in that with all that you're doing with Kamigo and other things?
It is this moving target. Obviously, there's some basic things we've done from day one, which is even on the basic prompting, you're a Socratic tutor. You can nudge the student in the right direction, but not give them the answer. But as we all know, if you've ever tutored a student, that's sometimes hard for a human tutor to do. I help my kids when they're doing their homework. And sometimes I do feel like, oh, I'm kind of doing a little bit too much. I've got to back off a little bit. But sometimes they do need a little bit of a nudge. You don't want them to just flail all night. That's not going to be constructive either. So it is a tough thing to thread. One of the hardest things actually is the evaluation of the students. Because you can imagine, let's say the answer is 1/3 and the student puts in 0.33.
Right.
They're not quite right, but they're not super wrong either. And so we've done a lot of work there. We've built a whole infrastructure around test cases that have been very difficult. And then every time we do new tweaks to the different layers of reasoning we do, and we're trying with new models, we're able to test how does it handle all of these edge cases. And so that's given us confidence that we're moving forward. We also have edge cases on errors, on the evaluation errors, or even math errors and things like that. And they're now sub 5%, and in fact, many cases sub 1%. And this goes back to not letting perfect be the enemy of the good. I remember when we saw those numbers, we're all wanting to be 0%.
Right.
But then I was like, I wonder what I am when I tutor my my own family. And just the other day I was tutoring my 11-year-old, and I was like, we did the problem together and we got an answer, and he put it in on Khan Academy. He got it wrong. And he's like, well, you made Khan Academy and you got it wrong. Oh, negative sign, right? Like, so I think my error rate is actually probably higher than the AI at this point. It is good to remember that.
It's very fair. And I want to press a little on, you write thoughtfully that AI is a teaching assistant, AI tutor for existing teachers and won't displace teacher. And to be clear, I don't think teachers are going to go away, but I think their role could change more dramatically than just sourcing some of the administrative and planning tasks and grading tasks to AI. Let's talk about that. Like, what do you see if you think 3 years from now, how would you think the teacher's role is different? Like, what are they actually doing with students when they're with them?
I'm convinced that teaching is one of the safest jobs in an AI world. I think any job that can really lean into the human element is going to be safe. I am worried. I mean, that's a whole other conversation about if you're a rideshare driver, if you're a call center worker.
Me too.
Anyway, that might be my next book, actually, what we need to do on the reskilling side.
Universal basic income, I think.
Yeah, I'm a fan of universal basic work. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, for now. Yeah.
I imagine an ideal AI-enabled classroom in 3 years or 5 years. Right when you observe it, it'll just feel like a good classroom. A good classroom today, I think the teacher's walking around, the kids look really engaged. They're actively doing something, that they find engaging and is actually on standard and useful for those kids to engage in. I could imagine, I was just in Newark, New Jersey. I've seen some great classrooms with great teachers. One of them had a station rotation model where about 5 or 10 kids were doing their Khan Academy. Another 5 or 10 kids were working on a project together. And then the teacher was doing kind of a focused intervention with another 5 or 10 kids. Very interactive, was great. You can imagine other classrooms where it's more Socratic dialogue. And you're like, oh, wait, where's the AI? The AI is almost invisible, but it's empowering that scenario. So some of it is happening outside of the classroom, as we were talking about before. Even when there is a very prescriptive curriculum, we know that it doesn't work in the reality. Oftentimes for the teacher, they have a different amount of time. Kids need something else. So they're modifying it. They have to do lesson planning. That takes hours a week. They're grading papers. They're doing all that. Hopefully AI is by a factor of 10, taking that off of teachers' plates. And when the teachers are thinking about what they want to do in the classroom, they're able to modify that even more. I actually think in about 5 years, people will realize these very prescriptive curricula don't make sense anymore. Yeah. That actually what they're going to be is like guidelines for an AI to work with the teacher to create custom curricula that are still on standard for what those kids need. But you can imagine when they're in the classroom, the teacher, this might feel a little bit scary, but if we get the privacy and all that right, the technology is already there where an AI can observe the classroom. It can see if a student is not on task, and it can whisper in the teacher's ear. Maybe they have their AirPods in and say, hey, go walk by Billy's desk. Just walk by it and let's see if it gets him back on task. Or, Susie was all year really engaged, but this, today she's, why don't you go tell her this, that you really appreciate this about her? And, with the other 1,000 teachers I've recommended that to, it really worked with students like Susie. Or, hey, this doesn't seem to be working for the class right now. Let's pivot it quickly. I mean, every teacher's been there. They have this great lesson plan, and then they bring it to the class like, oh boy, this is falling flat. Well, in real time, let's pivot this thing. And so, the teacher is spending a lot less time on the administrative paperwork side of things, grading side of things. The teacher's spending a lot more time engaging with their students, but they'll look like they're magical. I raise a lot of money for Khan Academy as a nonprofit, and before I go to a big fundraising event, there'll be someone from my philanthropy team saying, hey, make sure to talk to that person. They gave us $1 million. They care about this. Teachers need that too. Hey, go talk to Billy. He cares about this and he needs help right now.
I hear you. I do think a lot of the instructional stuff, like if you could outsource the fundraising to someone genius of framing it, you would too. It's interesting because my daughter, Izzy, works at a school called Winston Prep, which is a school for students with learning differences. She got her master's in social work, and she's a focus teacher. And it's amazing the support these students get. She has just 7 students. So every student in school gets a personalized, and she meets with each of her 7 students for a full period every day, 5 days a week. And she does social emotional stuff. She does some incremental instruction and so forth. And I do wonder whether that is more the future of the teacher doing that kind of thing, the more that the AI can do the core piece of instruction. We can debate that another time. So in your book, you delve into AI and mental health. And you share that loneliness, isolation among young people is an epidemic. I think we all see the data and agree. And you share that AI can provide some support to people who feel isolated. My worry in reading that and thinking about that and following all this is the more we condition people to find the connection through a chatbot or whatever, the less likely they're going to either need or forge connections with humans. So it feels like, how do we square this circle? Because I both agree with you that it can help, but worry that it can also harm. And so I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, and I don't claim to have the perfect crystal ball, but I think, in moderation, it can actually be very, very powerful. I have a family member who's trying to navigate the mental health space right now, and it is so hard to find help and so expensive. And we're fortunate, consider us solidly upper middle class, and I'm like, what? Like, that's how much it costs. And so it's extremely hard to do it. And actually, the same family member has found it's not like they are giving up on the traditional system. We're trying to navigate that, but this person has taken solace in working with ChatGPT, actually. And
there's a lot of research that the virtual therapists are actually effective. Yeah, so I agree.
Yeah. And I can imagine both. I mean, it goes back to like the teacher analogy. If I'm a therapist, I get to see my patient once a week. Well, what else is happening in between? So if they're able to talk to a virtual therapist, an AI therapist, maybe a virtual therapist that I prompted to have the same style, and maybe it can observe even our therapy sessions too. So it has that context.
Yeah.
Then I have the context of what's happening during the week, and it has the context of what's happening in the therapy session. That's more, 360. It surrounds the user. There's a lighter story from my own family. In the book, I talk a lot about my daughter. She's very reluctant to be included in any of this stuff, but she's always my best source of stories. This was about 2 months ago, so this isn't in the book. She's 14. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and 11-year-old, boy. And our 11-year-old is always, she gets annoyed by him, his classic stuff. And she's sometimes, honestly, a little bit mean to him. I would almost categorize it as bullying. And about a month or two ago, we see her being shockingly nice. Like, her friends comes over and they're going to watch a movie in the garage. And they're like, hey, Azad, do you want to watch it with us? I was like, what's going on here? Like, this is... And, he was so excited. And when I got her alone, I said, hey, Dia, I noticed you're being very kind to your brother. What's going on? And she said, well, I didn't even know this was happening. I've been journaling on ChatGPT, and I was complaining about Azad, how annoying he is, and blah, blah, blah. And it told me that, and, she has her AI talk to her in like Gen Z slang. So it's like,
yeah.
I see what you're saying, but, it's your little bro, and you're going to go to college in 4 years, and trust me, you're going to miss him, and you're going to reminisce about these days, and it's only 4 years, and you're going to wish you had included him. And it made the difference. It had a noticeable positive difference on her. If my wife or I said that, she would have just rolled her eyes. So I think there's positivity to it, but it's like anything. We want our kids to read books, but if they do nothing but read books and they don't go hang out with friends, that's not good. Similarly, if they can get a little bit of help from this, that's great. But, I also hope that the AIs can say, hey, we've talked for an hour. Why don't you go outside? Or
go do something.
Try talking to your dad about this. Or who's your closest friend? Oh, I'm your closest friend? No. You need someone else. Things like that.
I can't wait for your book on parenting tips. That's coming next.
I have to wait till my kids are at least, I got to make sure that they're not anyway.
Yeah. So AI is moving so quickly, a month in the AI world feels like, a year or 2 years, and it makes it even more impressive that your book, Brave New Words, which was published, I think, in March, and I'm sure you were finalizing even well before then, is still, I literally listened to the last 2 weeks and still so on point. With that said, what's changed or surprised you since you published that you're like, wow, that went faster, went very different than you had thought?
The stuff that's going slower than I expected is, if you look at the latest, Gemini 3 or GPT-5 or, Claude, Opus 4.5 or whatever, they've gotten a lot better in important ways. They're hallucinating less, much better at math. I mean, they're incredible at coding. I think, the video generation, so all that stuff has surpassed expectations. They haven't gone as far as I thought they would by this point. If you took the trend line from 3 to 4.
Yep.
And so, it's reinforced this idea that AI, at least immediately, isn't going to eat everything.
Do you feel more relieved by that, or like bummed that it isn't going at this,
Well, as you mentioned, it's still going super fast in other areas. I feel, honestly, if I'm honest, a little relieved that we have more time. I remember telling the OpenAI folks, if you just froze at GPT-4 for the next 10 years, you're going to keep us busy.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way.
So it's there's a lot there, and maybe because they haven't tried, it doesn't make a Khan Academy explainer video. There's people who made explainer videos. They're okay, but you can tell they're AI generated. They don't have the
Yeah.
same feeling of like, oh, this is some dude in a closet trying to work through this that seems to have care about me, things like that. They haven't even done. I mean, I know y'all have to do a lot of item generation. We have to do a lot of item generation. I
Yeah.
think we were both hoping that it could generate very high quality items fast.
Yeah. You
Not
still
quite.
need humans. It can help with some of the detractors and stuff. That's a great one.
Yeah.
You also co-authored Teaching Students to Use AI Ethically and Responsibly. For districts and school leaders and teachers who are listening and working on implementing AI, I can't miss the opportunity for you to give them advice on, common pitfalls, evidence-based strategies. Like, what would your advice to them be?
I'd say the first is don't make kids have to navigate some weird gray area. And I don't think, you might think you're setting a bright line by saying, don't use AI. You cannot use AI for this assignment. Well, it turns out as soon as you do a web search, you've used AI. As soon as your grammar checker, you've used AI. So you're putting kids in this weird gray area. I would say if you really want to make sure kids are doing it themselves, do it in class. We're working on some tools that'll make the process transparent, but it's using AI for that. But it's kind of a Socratic AI.
Yeah.
Or lean into projects where you just tell the kids use AI. I was meeting a family friend who's a freshman at Stanford, humanities major, and he was in midterms and there was a bunch of take-home assessments. And I asked him, I was like, what percentage of your peers are using AI for this? He's like, 95%. And then I'm like, oh my God, how does that make you feel? He's like, makes me feel horrible because I'm in the 5% that's still, trying to learn. And it makes you wonder like, well, okay, well, on some level, those students, that 95% are doing the right thing because when they come into our organizations, we want them to be able to write more, better, et cetera, but they're not learning what Stanford thinks that they're teaching them.
Yeah.
And so there's a real problem. So don't put students in that. And, I think honor codes, this might be controversial, are a signal for a lot of dishonor. So like, be very clear with folks. Don't think that you can detect AI. These AI detectors have a 40% false positive rate. And now there are these apps called humanizers, which are meant to have,
technology is going to outpace anything we can do to detect.
Yes.
That's a fool's errand. Yeah.
And then, especially in high school and college, lean into it. Tell the kids to use AI. If you want them to know how to write by themselves, which is important, I think, do it in class and, do a flipped classroom as we talked about before.
Yeah, no, and we're working on tools as well as you are, where there's parts of the process you want them to do without AI authentically, and if that's in class and so forth. But other stuff you have to lean in. And I do worry about an arms race kind of thing where a student who wants to do the right thing, but everybody else isn't. It's tricky. So I always ask each guest 4 rapid fire questions just to get to know you a little better, just very quickly. So one educational buzzword you wish we could retire.
Boy. Let me think fast. This is supposed to be rapid fire. The one I was going to say, I don't want to trigger people.
Unvarnished. Come on, Sal.
What came into my mind was the high quality instructional materials.
Okay.
And not that I think that they're bad, but I think we're going into a world, I think the reality is most teachers view them as suggestions, not as exactly what to do. And they do need to be customized more. So I'm viewing them.
I like that. That's brave. And I think they can be overdone. So your favorite book about education or one that deeply shaped your thinking? And you can't be your own book, I should say.
Yeah, that would be circular. I'll reference science fiction. I reference the Foundation series a lot, and it's not an obvious book about education, but it's a world, it's a universe, it's a galaxy where 30,000 years in the future where someone says, hey, I want to shorten the dark ages of the Galactic Empire, and I'm going to do it by collecting all of the galaxy's knowledge in a foundation. And I read it in 7th grade. It was very inspiring. And I still, and when I'm having more of my grandiose thoughts, I think of, maybe Khan Academy can be that foundation for us.
Awesome. Love it. One thing that makes you bullish on the future of learners?
When I see some of the strongest students that are coming out of our system, they are very strong. They are people that will give anyone their run for their money. So that, it sounds cheesy, but when I see some of these young people, it gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, fair enough. And last question, what one class do you wish all students had to take?
Oh boy, I'm going to be a little bit pragmatic here. It's actually probably a toss-up between like a finance accounting class and a legal class. Like these are both two things that everyone should know, and it's mind-blowing that they aren't part of the, financial literacy is a basic thing, but just to know the basics of how organizations, anyway, either that or law.
And this is not a plug. College Board's launching an AP Business and Personal Finance class. So if you knew that, I would feel even better. But
also, you got to do an AP Law too. That'd be awesome.
Okay, we'll look into it. But imagine, we've talked about the role of AI. Imagine we're having a conversation 3-5 years down the road. What's a dream scenario where you really look back and say this evolved the way you could have hoped it could?
Yeah, I hope we're, as I said, we're looking at classrooms that are more interactive, more joyous for everyone, the teacher, the students. People are seeing outcomes move in the right direction. I think another area that, I've talked to you and David about a little bit, I hope in 5 years we see new types of assessments. I think the things that we're already assessing are important, but I think there's other things that we can assess that can layer on it. I think AI could be part of that, where,
100%.
You're not just your writing, you could draw a picture, you can give a speech, you can dance, and it can give you feedback on your art. I think there's something there. I would love to see a world where the AI tools that are dominating and are getting traction are ones that actually make us healthier, not less healthy, almost like the anti-social media. I've definitely brainstormed with folks. Someone, maybe we'll try to do it, make some tools that can be AIs on our side that can monitor us, our students, while they're working and say, hey, that video is not appropriate. Or, hey, we've done this for half an hour. Let's go play outside. Or instead of chatting with your friend, why don't you go to their house? They're only 2 miles away. Things like that. Or talking to the parents and saying, hey, are you okay with Azad doing this for now? It's like, oh, only if he does his Khan Academy first. And it's like the AI says, got it. I'll go do that. I think that could be a positive future. Unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot of negatives too that I'm worried about.
Me too. But I love the vision. Again, those who have not read Brave New Words, you get into a lot of this, and I found it inspiring and thoughtful. There's a lot for us to do, so I look forward to working together. But thank you so much for spending this time on the Education Equation, and congrats on all you've done, and look forward to hearing more and working with you in the future. Thank you, Sal.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for tuning in today. Join the conversation by following the Education Equation wherever you listen to podcasts.